This generation saw its fair share of HD updates, but one notable company that didn't indulge in the trend was Square Enix. Though late to the party, Kingdom Hearts HD 1.5 Remix is finally arriving in North America. The compilation includes the final mix version of the original Kingdom Hearts, an enhanced re-release with new content that was never before released outside of Japan, the PS2 remake of Chain of Memories, and 358 Over 2 Days, which was originally an exclusive for the Nintendo DS. The HD conversion for all three games is a top-notch effort, providing cleaned-up models and improved visuals that still hold up even after nearly a decade. Much of the music was tweaked for the better too. The only downside is the game runs at 30 frames per second. An action-heavy RPG like Kingdom Hearts could have benefited from 60 frames per second, and seeing how other action-heavy HD updates have hit the mark, it's a small letdown that Square Enix couldn't achieve it.
So you know this.
On the surface, each of the games in this collection appear similar, but in truth they're vastly different experiences. The original Kingdom Hearts is easily the highlight with its action-oriented combat system and plethora of diverse Disney-themed worlds. Sora's adventure with Donald and Goofy to defeat evil beings known as the Heartless and save their friends is still an enjoyable one. It starts off incredibly slow, but eventually the pace quickens and hits its stride. The real-time combat system was a welcome change to the turn-based pedigree of Final Fantasy games, but it wasn't a perfect system. Kingdom Hearts was plagued by poor camera system, awkward platforming mechanics, and a less-than-intuitive interface during combat. The HD update improves the camera system, but it's still far from optimal. Combat is actually significantly better courtesy of the refinements to the interface, most notably better shortcuts for casting spells or using items. However, the platforming mechanics are still irksome, a problem compounded by the sometimes poor camera work. Despite uncorrected minor issues, Kingdom Hearts is an enjoyable experience with fun combat mechanics and plenty of side activities to keep you busy for hours. It's also the game in the series with arguably the best balance of Disney, Final Fantasy, and original characters. The story is a memorable tale, though it's not without its overbearing moments. If there's only one game you try in the series, the original Kingdom Hearts is the one to go with. Chain of Memories deviates from several of the key components of the Kingdom Hearts games. Originally a 2D game for the GBA, the 3D remake utilizes a card-based battle system for combat rather than the typical interface. This alteration is jarring, and for a combat system that prides itself on real-time battles, the card mechanics of your decks can trip up the experience. There's certainly a lot of depth to the card system and building out your decks, but there's a significant learning curve to overcome. The game also retreads a lot of familiar territory as you revisit every world from the original game. These worlds are no longer uniquely crafted zones, but rather a string of generic, procedurally generated rooms with little to no emphasis on exploration. Though combat remains in real time, battles are triggered by approaching an enemy and being transported to a battle environment, rather than immediately fighting foes in the rooms. It's another mechanic that slows the game's pace down too much, and at times feels like a grind. Chain of Memories' biggest draw, if you're not into the card-based battle system, is its story. Though it might appear to be a retelling of Kingdom Hearts, it's actually a new story with a more character-driven plot that centers around a mysterious organization bent on using Sora and his friends to achieve their own desires. However, there's dissent amongst the ranks of the group, providing some tension and dramatic twists when the betrayals begin. Like much of the experience, the narrative moves along at a slow pace and takes its time to develop, but the payoff at the end is worth the wait. Plus, if you have any intention of ever playing Kingdom Hearts 2, you'll be at a loss if you're not familiar with the events of Chain of Memories.
Don't you go off and die on me now.
Finally, the collection revisits the ridiculously named 358 Over 2 Days, which benefits the most from the visual overhaul given its origin on the Nintendo DS. Unfortunately, there isn't anything to actually play in this version, but rather a string of cutscenes that form a nearly 3-hour-long movie. All cutscenes are now fully voiced and animated rather than the text-only dialogue and static shots of the original version, but it's hard not to feel shortchanged at the fact the core game was removed in the favor of just cutscenes.
This place is so much nicer, without the loudmouths.
With 358 Over 2 Days reduced to a movie, one would hope that its narrative would be strong enough to carry the experience. However, that's not the case. 358 Over 2 Days is an extremely slow-paced and dull tale with only a few interesting plot points. Those precious few moments largely exist to serve the larger storyline of the series, and are hardly enough to hold your attention long enough to stick it through to the end. You can at least view the story at your own pace, but it's hard to look at this part of the collection and not feel disappointed.
What's happening?
While Kingdom Hearts HD 1.5 Remix certainly lives up to the HD part of its name, the collection is not without its shortcomings. The original game's inclusion with all the new revisions and the addition of final mix content is a worthy investment on its own, and the inclusion of Chain of Memories is a nice gesture. The card-based battle system might be off-putting, but it's a unique experiment that deviates from the norm of the series. However, despite the overhauled visuals and new voice work, it's hard to excuse the reduction of 358 over 2 days to a lengthy film rather than an actual game.
Hearts full of rage, hate, sadness, and bliss.
It's not a perfect collection, but a decent bundle, with Kingdom Hearts Final Mix serving as the main attraction. If you've never played Kingdom Hearts, this might be a good opportunity to get acquainted with the series.
All for one for all.